It is
All
recording.
right. So, hello, everyone. I am Lady Nuala. I'm from Namron, and I'm going to be teaching about how to be a hospitaler. Just some, background. I have a dog, so if she starts barking, don't freak out. My husband will take care of her. And I just recently stepped down as deputy hospitaler for Namron, just actually this month. So part of my slideshow is present tense, part of it's past tense, depends on when I wrote it. So bear with me. If you're like me, that would bug me, but we'll get through it.
Are
And
you already sharing your screen?
yes, and
I can't
this,
see it.
yeah, I haven't started it yet, Kat.
Okay, sorry.
Just giving some background. And this will be kind of a quick session because I don't know, for me, I think hospitaling is easy. It's kind of a no-brainer, but there is a lot of stuff in there. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Let's view present. All right. Can you guys all see that? Okay, cool beans. So how to be a hospitaler. And then I put my email address on there. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. I'm available. So, what is a hospital? Let me move. Okay, moving my screen just a little. All right. So what is a hospitaler? A hospitaler is someone who works towards the recruitment and retention of members for the SCA. Hospitaling is kind of like being on the welcome wagon. You want to be one of the first people to greet the newcomers, if not the first person. Hospitalers help connect newcomers and members to others with skills in their interest fields. It's okay not to know specific answers or who specifically to talk to, as long as you know at least a roundabout way how to get to them. For example, I had someone ask me about chivalric fighting, and I don't know a whole lot about that, but I know a few people to go find and they can help with that. And it's for members too, because occasionally, someone's like, okay, I want to try something new. I'm going to go from being a fiber arts person and go to, I don't know, chivalric fighting. And they may not know who to contact yet. So it's for everyone. Hospitalers can also help get newcomers and members loaner garb and feast gear for events. I know a lot of people know about the Lonergard, but in Namron, we did start a drive to have that feast gear, especially to give out to our newest members, because whenever you show up to your first few events, you may not know that you're going to need that stuff. And in Namron, the hospitals also help with the baronial library, and hospitalers help do a lot of things for and at the events. It's not just running this one tent, it's also being a big integral part of it. So at events, hospitalers need to be willing to explain what the SCA is and what is currently happening at the event. And just to clarify, a hospitaler can be anyone. It doesn't have to be someone with the title for the barony. As long as you're willing to be a helpful person and kind to new, especially new, but literally all members, you are a hospitaler. So when you see the word hospitaler, it's anyone willing to help out, really. In the past, for our events, we have created newcomer bingo, and it's been really fun things like go say hi to a duke, or go shake 3 pelicans' hands, go throw an axe or something. But it helps them meet the officers, it helps them meet other members, and it helps get newcomers to participate. because a lot of times they are really intimidated by everything. They think we know everything that we're doing already, if they only knew. And they're afraid to dive in. And that newcomer bingo, we saw a lot more engagement with our newcomers in the actual event. And they actually came up to us afterwards and said, that was wonderful. Please have another one next time. And we even had some members that have been showing up for years that grabbed a bingo card and said it was even fun for them. So there's a plus to that. During events, hospitalers should be ready to answer basic questions for newcomers. And many times people walk into an event without knowing anything about the SCA or what we're doing. So being able to answer like, okay, well, right now we're having classes, and in a little bit we'll have a meal, and after that we'll have court. Just a basic knowledge of what's happening, because if you walk into an event and you have no clue, everything is it's a bit much. It's always a good idea for a hospitaler to keep checking in on their newcomers during the event and to make sure that they are not feeling overwhelmed or out of place. I don't know how your first event went whenever you first joined, but I felt very overwhelmed, and having a few people constantly come over and constantly make sure that I was having fun, I was understanding what was happening, it made a world of difference. So if you are someone who welcomes a new person, just keep checking in on them. And if you're not able to do that because maybe you have to leave, maybe you have work, or maybe you're going to be working entourage and you just can't keep checking in on them, maybe assign someone to keep checking in on them. We thought about starting that in Namron. We did not get that started before our time was up, but hopefully one day that will be something where we have newcomers paired with someone to walk with them throughout the entire event if that's what the newcomer wanted. In Namron, our biggest event of the year for hospitaling is at the Medieval Fair. And the reason I say that's our biggest event is because that is definitely where we get the most amount of newcomers. In 2019, we had close to 100 people come over to our tent, sign up for information, take information, and continue coming to either events, practices, or gatherings, or they continue to keep in contact with us via Facebook or emails, even to this day. And that's amazing. And that's just in 1 year. That is definitely our biggest event. Now, for that event, it did take a lot of information. We had to gather information about groups, practices, meetings, baronies, shires, and cantons in the area, as well as the kingdom information, because when you do have those medieval fairs, you have people from all over coming in. So having a basic common knowledge of other kingdoms helps as well. People have a lot of questions about activities, and so it's a good idea to brush up on all the different things that your barony provides or what the surrounding baronies provides. We had a few people from different groups and activities such as chivalric, rapier. We had a few siege people over there, arts and science people over near our tent. So whenever someone had a question about it, we could say, well, you can go to this person who knows all about it. And it just helped connect them with an actual face rather than a piece of paper. And that's always a wonderful idea. All right. So earlier I said, everyone can be a hospitaler. But that's the short answer. I mean, obviously people know about, you become the actual office and all that. But have you ever, okay, so here's my thing about how everyone's a hospitaler. Have you ever been on your way to an event? You are completely dressed up in garb. You are looking your finest. And you have to go and stop at the gas station. You get the weirdest looks from everyone. But it's okay, because in that moment, you are being a hospitaler. Because people are going to react one of three ways. They're going to look at you like you're crazy, which they all might do anyways. They're going to ask you why you're dressed up like that, if they're brave, or if they know anything about how you're dressed, they're going to comment and say how much they love the medieval fair and they didn't know it was happening right now. And those are the 3 biggest comments. But that's your opportunity. That is your ticket in, because you can, if you're like me, you're going to like, well, we're a little bit different than the medieval fair. But you can also just share everything. Connect with them, find out what they like, share some information. I carry around baronial and kingdom business cards, and I pass them out like Tic Tacs. Because if that person, like, you have that conversation, you can connect with them. If they are actually interested, they're going to take that card, they're going to look at the information on it, and they're going to look things up. I like how on our cards, a lot of times now they are starting to list our Facebook pages. And people are 9 times out of 10 more likely to visit a Facebook or Instagram page than they are to email about information. So if you do have a card, first off, if you don't have business cards from your barony or kingdom, ask for them. Your hospitalers, seneschals will gladly give them to you to pass out. But if they don't have the Facebook page, whenever you hand them out, feel welcome to tell them about the Facebook page. People will check it out, and that's where we'll get some retention. Oh, I see a comment. Let me look at it, maybe. Oh, I can't see it, Kat. I know that you
You're
come.
fine. Yep, I got it.
Okay.
Kel was just saying she had to go, so she says thank you for the class, but she has to leave.
Okay. Another thing that is part of the actual office of hospitaler is Lonergard. And Lonergard I was the one in our group that was in charge of Lonergard. We had a wonderful team where the whole thing didn't fall on one person's shoulders. And I was in charge of Lonergard, and Lonergard is a huge deal. If you walk in and you don't have a lot, you have to obtain some, because whenever you have it and you're trying to dress up newcomers, you want to have a vast array so that they feel comfortable in what you're giving them. And it's okay if they come back and say, I don't like this, just change it out for them. And that has happened several times. But anywho, Lonergard is the collection of donated clothing items that can be lent out to newcomers or members when the need arises. And I put "and members" because I have had some of our chivalric fighters come to me and say, I just have some new armor. My regular fighting tabards, they don't, for whatever reason, they don't fit or work with my new armor. Do you have something I can borrow? And so that's why I threw in the members, because there are times when that does happen. Or when members have babies and they just don't want to make a bunch of baby clothing. We do also have that. So when someone walks up to an event off the street, they aren't dressed in period clothing. So it's nice to offer them a few things just so they can get the feel of wearing our clothing. It also helps keep the ambiance of the event. But don't pressure them into doing it if they are very uncomfortable with that. We don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. I highly suggest that if you are in charge of Lonergard, you keep a very detailed list of what you have and what's available in your collection. Roughly the size of the items, a brief description, so that when someone goes to borrow something or ask for something, you already know what you have. I was so detailed, I had pictures, so as soon as someone would message me, I could say, okay, here's 3 pictures of different things you were describing, pick which one you like. But also, whenever you loan things out, get all the contact information you can. Most people are wonderful about returning it at the end of the event. Every now and then you have to track down people. And whenever you return it, I know this seems like a no-brainer, and probably you guys are going to say, well, duh, but you have to wash it whenever you get it back. You would be surprised. And I'm a little OCD. I always washed it twice. Like once when I first got it back, and if I knew it was something that someone asked for to borrow, I would wash it before I gave it out to them, just so it had a fresh, clean smell to it, because we kept all of ours in tubs. Another aspect of the actual office of hospitaller is the lending library. And that's open for all persons, newcomers, members. And it works kind of like a regular library minus the overdue fines. And I mean, unless you make Ragnar mad, then he might fine you. But, you know. In Namron, one person from our team was in charge of the library and kept it at their house. And we helped grow our library by asking for books from the populace that they no longer wanted or needed. We would search yard sales. We would attend Friends of the Library sales and just find those interesting period books. We had everything from clothing to cooking and settlements to the names and everything in between. So maybe someone decides, hey, I'm going to change personas for some reason. They would have a way to go and do some actual book research if that's what they liked. Or maybe they wanted to look through, we found at the Friends of the Norman Library sale, we found a Venetian cookbook. Yeah, Kat. And we picked it up for almost nothing and added it to the library. It was more of like a little kid's book, but it had some great recipes in there. So those are some of the things that could be found and added to the library. And how to spot a newcomer. This one I love because this is sometimes a no-brainer. They're not in Garb, or their Garb is blatantly not period, and they're just wandering around looking lost. They look like a lost puppy. But sometimes it's not easy to catch them. The best way is to strike up a conversation with as many people as you can find. One thing about being a hospitaller is you have to be willing to be extroverted. And everyone on our hospitaller team this time around was introverted. So that was fun. But you have to be willing to strike up conversations. And I would love going to classes, attending classes. And right before the class would start, I would say, okay, how long has everyone been playing? Or how many kingdoms has everyone been playing in? And, you know, you'll get your people that have been playing for 30, 40 years, and they've been in all the kingdoms in the United States, and they know everything. But you're also going to catch those newcomers. They're like, this is my first event, or this is my second event, and this is my first time going to classes. And that's a great way to catch them, because then they're learning other things about other people. And you're being able to spot maybe who's new to the kingdom, who's new to the area, and who's just new. With the pandemic that we've been going through, it's been a little bit harder to catch our newcomers. So I would go through our baronial pages and look for comments like, I'm new at this, what do I do? Or things like, how does this work? Or the one newcomer I did catch really quickly, she's like, I want to get into this, how do I do it? Those statements that make you think, I wonder how long they've been playing. In this season of 2020, that's the best way to find a newcomer. Basic information to share whenever you do find a newcomer. I always have a huge list of things to share, and obviously depending on how interested the person is how much you share, because if they look at you like they don't want to talk to you, quit talking. But if they are completely enthralled, you know, they're making wonderful eye contact, keep going. And so I always share my mundane name and my SCA name, because, for example, Katerina, I had no idea that was not her real name. It took me about 2 years. So things like that, I just let them know, you know, we all have almost all of us have 2 names, and explain that a little bit. I also like to explain my persona. I'm a Celt, because they're probably looking at your clothing, wondering who you are, where you're from, when you're from, because not everyone just has that innate ability. I like to explain the basics of the SCA, and that we're a non-for-profit educational society, and we bring the past to life, which is very basic of what we are, but explain it to them that way. I would let them know when I was a deputy hospitaler that that's what I was, and any member of the entire SCA would be happy to help them, but especially the hospitalers. I made sure to tell them we don't bite. And if they got really lost and they were afraid to talk to someone, the people with the green belt flags that had the gold key on it, those were hospitalers, and they were more than happy to help. And we had a giant wooden board with the green and gold key painted on it. And I always let them know that you can go there. That's a place for new people, and really anyone, but definitely for new people. It was a safe place for them, as is all of the SCA, but especially that tent. I would ask if they have any questions. And if they do, to just ask anybody. Everyone is pretty much happy to answer questions because we're proud of what we do. I would give them a brief overview of what was happening at the event, let them know where some things are located, especially bathrooms. That's always one of the questions I've got. Let them know, hey, the people with these giant crowns, that's king and queen, and people with the little bit smaller ones, those are probably your baron and baroness, and just give them some basics of it. And then I would always ask them or tell them, you know, if you can, attend court at the end of the day, because the king and queen, their majesties, they like to give tokens of appreciation to newcomers. They like to welcome you and make you feel welcomed. And then I would go into what that looks like, because if they're like me, they're very shy, and going up in front of a bunch of people, depending on how big court was, could be intimidating. But just let them know, and let them know if they wanted, I would walk up there with them. You know, it was totally up to what they wanted. I would always offer to sit with them during feast and court, because I don't know if you've ever been at a feast where you really didn't know very many people, but that's horrible trying to find a seat. I mean, it's pretty bad when you do know a bunch of people, but especially if you don't know anyone. And then ask them if they have feast gear. I like to carry extra things with me, because you never know what's going to happen. And if they don't have feast gear, I offer it, or I would take them over to the hospitaler tent and we would get them their own feast gear, that because we did this giant drive for feast gear, they could take home with them and use for the next event, which, you know, everyone loves taking home a gift. So, and like I said, just answer all the questions that they have, and above all, be kind and friendly. We have a lot of different people in the world, but being kind and friendly goes a long way. And this is my part where I have a question for you all. What do you think would make hospitalers more visible during events to newcomers? How could we get newcomers to know, hey, this is your person that may not have all the answers, but has pretty close to all the answers for you? What is everyone's thoughts on that?
Well,
I don't.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm Michelle from Artemisia. I don't know how to get people to recognize the hospitaler better, but what we're doing in our barony is we made a set of Lonergard for like 4 different sizes for adults that all looks identical in our baronial colors, and it all of it has the chatelaine patch, the arms on it, so that we can identify them. So it's easy to send our chatelaine that, hey, that's the person you need to go talk to. And we keep it
love that.
Smart.
You can do.
Yeah, that's really smart.
Absolutely love that.
I was going to say too that I like the fact that you guys were wearing the gold key, because, you know, that's something that we can do so that you, like you said, you can say, hey, you know, if you need to talk to someone, you have questions, those people have agreed to wear this patch, they're comfortable with talking to newcomers, feel free to talk to them.
Yeah. And we would tell, along with that, we would tell the gate, you know, if they found a newcomer, let them know to find us, because again, sometimes you can't just outright spot them, but most of the time you can. They've got that lost puppy look.
Yeah.
The populace also needs to be reminded to send newcomers to the hospitaler / chatelaine, however you want to say it. Sometimes they just try to handle it on their own. And it's like, well, I appreciate that and all, but I have additional resources. So make sure you send them to come see me.
Yes, and I find that, like, especially when we do our big event, the medieval fair, everyone's really good about that during that. But then I feel like during the year and over the events, they forget about that sometimes. So I completely agree with you.
Yeah, that's definitely something you probably have to keep reminding people.
Yes. One thing I did want to add, we were thinking about, and we will probably try and push for this when we finally do have events again, making QR codes that would link to all the information. Because nowadays, everyone's got a smartphone. Even me, the last holdout, I just got a smartphone this past school year. You get those QR codes, people can quickly scan it and get all the information. Cuts down on paper, which for some people, if they're having to print at home, that's a big disadvantage because maybe they don't have a printer. And let's face it, it's kind of out of the way to have to go somewhere to print it off. It's annoying, frankly. So we were thinking of QR codes to help with that people could just scan. And at a big recruitment event, have people wear stickers with those QR codes so that they could just scan it instead of having a million business cards all over.
That's cool.
So any other questions, comments, concerns? No?
Not for me. I think you did a great job. And thank you so much for teaching.
All right. Well, it was kind of a quick class because, again, I think hospitaling is easy. It's basically find the people that look like they're lost and help them not be lost. But that's me. And if you guys ever have any questions or anything, I may not be a deputy anymore because that just got up, but I am definitely going to still be helping, and I would be happy to answer any questions for anyone.
Awesome.
Thank you for sharing your insights today.
Oh, well, thank you for joining, and thank you for sharing your insights.
Thank you so much.
Thank
All right,
you.
guys, everybody have a good night.
You
We'll talk to
too.
later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Good night.